This is the 8BitDo SN30 Pro Bluetooth gamepad. Now, 8BitDo is known for making clone controllers, and supposedly these are good quality, so I figured I'd give it a try. I went for the SN30 Pro, which is a Super Nintendo controller, but it has some extra little bits and bobs on it, like extra triggers and analog sticks. You can get them in European Skittle flavor, but I went with the American version as it's the patrician's choice. They used to have a non-pro version on their website that didn't have extra analog sticks or triggers, but it looks like they took them down and they're going to sell an updated version this holiday, maybe. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this controller sucks, at least for what I got it for. I'll talk about that later. But first I'll tell you the features. It's Bluetooth, obviously, and it can charge with a USB-C cable. It's got 4 different controller modes with a helpful little key on the back to tell you how to boot into each one. Basically, you have X input, which is just like an Xbox 360 controller, easy to pair for like PC games and stuff. D input, which is mostly used for Android devices, a Mac OS version, I don't know, and a Switch Pro controller mode. That's right, this natively works on the Switch, supposedly. I don't actually have a Switch, so I can't tell you. I do know it has regular non-HD rumble, it has gyro controls, and it cannot scan amiibos. I'll tell you the things I do like about this controller. It's easy to pair, for the most part. Let's put an asterisk on that. When I used it with my computer, I just used a cheap little $3 Chinese Bluetooth adapter, and it worked fine. You know, once you get it paired with like the X input mode, you just gotta start the controller up and it'll automatically connect. Easy. The controller feels like a Super Nintendo controller. It's actually pretty much exactly the same size, except it's got a little bit of extra plastic for the extra bits and bobs. And the battery's pretty good too. I think the box says 16 play hours, which I've been playing it on and off, moderately testing around with it for like 2 weeks until the battery light came on, and you know, that seems right. Now let's get into the things I don't like. Here's a little passage from their product page. The one controller to rule them all. We set out to design a fully featured retro controller to play 30 years of video games, with inspiration from the classics. Designed with the utmost attention to detail, we paid extra attention to the most critical characteristics, like the D-pad, to make sure it feels exactly like you remember it. Goddamn, no they did not. It feels so garbage, or it did feel garbage. The D-pad was horrible. It was so... You know how the Switch Pro controllers have that problem where it accidentally renders diagonals when you're just pressing left or right? This is exactly that. I tried to play Super Metroid with it, and if you try to switch directions quickly, you duck, and that stops you dead in your tracks. I tried it with Hollow Knight. I had a lot of problems just pausing mid-step. I don't know why it was doing that. Like the little dude was trying to look up and down. The buttons were so fucking stiff and loud. Here's what they sounded like before, and then how they sounded like after I fixed them. And one problem that's just kind of nitpicky is that the shoulder buttons aren't quite as sensitive as I'd like them to be. In Hollow Knight, you hold down L to look at the map, and sometimes, you know, you'd be seeing where you want to go, and your finger would start relaxing just a tiny bit. On a normal controller, that's not a big deal, but on this controller, it starts getting really shaky when you do that, and he'll start putting the map down, taking it up, putting it down, taking it up. That was annoying. I wasn't able to find a way to fix that. Now here's how I actually fixed it. I took apart this controller, I took out these shitty buttons and shitty rubber pads, and I replaced them with the guts of an actual Super Nintendo controller. Obviously that's not an ideal solution. It should just work right out of the fucking box, like they're advertising. They're pretty much the same pieces. You just gotta do a tiny little bit of trimming to fit them in there. And it might not have even been the button's fault. It was mostly just the membranes, because they're super stiff compared to an actual Super Nintendo controller. So just keep that in mind when you buy one of these controllers. You're gonna need some old crusty buttons to put in it for that extra authentic feel. I did that for the face buttons, and I did it for the D-pad, and I also found a little trick online to fix the diagonals problem, where you basically just put tape kind of covering up half of the contacts, and that actually helps make it a little less sensitive to diagonals, and it's not quite perfect, but it might just need a little bit more tweaking. As of right now, it's actually a very comfortable controller to use. But here comes the part that I actually bought it for. You see, I wanted to use something for my Wii U. I wanted to play Virtual Console games, and I hate the D-pad on the Pro controller. It's so loud. So I thought, hey, this is a good idea. Well, it turns out this doesn't work with the Wii U natively. So I did a little more research, and I heard some people had luck with this device. This is the retro receiver for the NES and SNES Classic, also by 8BitDo, but you might know it's the exact same connector that you can find in a Wiimote. And it seems so simple according to people online. You just take yourself a Wiimote, take this, shove it into the Wiimote, and it should just work as a classic controller, and that's what they said it does. It's not that fucking simple. This little device is a $15 test of patience. So I was able to get these paired together just fine. That's actually the intended purpose. You can use any kind of Bluetooth controller, allegedly, but it's mainly meant for 8BitDo controllers. And yeah, it makes sense. This is just functioning as a classic controller. When I tried this for the first time, all the inputs would spaz out. They would start holding an analog direction and pressing random buttons, like the A button would end up opening up the Virtual Console menu. It took me a while to figure out that you have to actually unplug it, go to the game, and then once you're in the game, plug it in. And then don't touch it. Don't go to the home menu or nothing. If you mess with it, it'll start doing that again. If you leave it alone, it'll actually work as intended. Kind of. I heard some reports that say that the regular Wiimote causes it to have glitches and that you need to take one of the controllers that have Motion Plus built in. It doesn't make a fucking difference. It's the same thing. This behaves exactly the same on the Wii U, the Wii U's Wii Mode, the actual Wii console. And I said the thing supposedly works for just all kinds of Bluetooth controllers. The site actually advertises that the DualShock 4 works on it. It kinda did, but the buttons were all messed up. They didn't align with the Super Nintendo controller at all, so I don't know what they're talking about. And I've tried updating firmware, rolling back firmware, trying different combinations of firmware with the controller. It didn't do anything. Now, there's a new problem that I found out right before recording this video. This only happens on an actual Wii console or the Wii U Virtual Console, but not the Wii U's Virtual Wii. For some reason, if you press L or R, no matter which, the game thinks you're pressing both of them at the same time. You fucking kidding me? I can't play a game like Super Metroid with that because Little Robot Man's gonna aim up instead of diagonally. Mega Man X suddenly became a lot harder because I can't change my powers. I even tried it in an actual Wii U game like Bayonetta 2. I can't use Umbran Climax. That's fucked up. It just registers it as the aim button for some reason. There was one anomalous case where I tried to play Kirby's Adventure on the Virtual Wii, and it wouldn't work unless I launched the game and then immediately after the Wiimote turns on, hook it in. Nowhere before, nowhere after. Otherwise it just wouldn't work. So I don't know. Now, I've played a few different games to cover a lot of different bases. I've done Mario World and Mega Man X. I actually was able to play pretty well in Mario World. It doesn't really need shoulder buttons, so it's good for platformers. Mega Man X as well, as long as you don't need to switch your fucking power. Gradius, I gave that a try. It actually works really well. Like, I have no problem moving around. The diagonals aren't too sensitive, and they're not too not sensitive. Keep in mind this is after I did the tape trick. Okay, hold up. I feel like I might need to clarify. The problems I had with the double shoulder buttons and the connectivity issues, those were all from the retro receiver hooked up to a Wiimote. When I hooked it up to a PC using a regular Bluetooth adapter, it worked just fine. This was just my experience using it on Wii consoles. Also, here's an input lag test. It's like 1 or 2 frames more than an actual controller. Alright, thank you, bye. Now for emulation on PC, this actually worked very well. I played a few different games. I didn't have any problem playing games like Metal Slug with it, so it's probably a good idea to get just for emulation. Played Hollow Knight and Killer is Dead on PC, and I've heard this is a good controller for the Switch. I can't confirm, I don't have one. And this thing's really inconsistent. It could have even more problems. But most of my problems come with the fact that this thing isn't supposed to be used in a Wiimote. In fact, I actually messaged 8BitDo to ask them, and they said no, it does not support the Wii U software. It'd be nice if it would, though. It's the same connector, though. All you really need is a firmware update to fix some of the bugs. Now that's a fringe case, so I'm gonna just forget about that for now. Do I think this controller is worth it? Okay, well, keep in mind, for it to actually feel like a Super Nintendo controller, you're gonna need to sacrifice a Super Nintendo controller. But even then, it's not really worth it. Because 8BitDo themselves offer a solution exactly like that. They sell DIY kits, which is literally just a circuit board that turns a genuine Super Nintendo controller into a wireless 8BitDo controller. All you need is the housing and the buttons and the membranes from an actual controller. And they're so much cheaper. It's like 20 bucks and this thing was like 50, 40 something. But if you want a genuine feeling controller, why don't you use a genuine controller? That's where a website like RAFnet Technologies comes in. These guys sell adapter cables for everything. They sell all the classic consoles to USB. They sell most of the classic consoles to Wiimote, so you can use it as classic controller. They sell cross-system controllers. They got a GameCube to N64 adapter that I heard was really good. I haven't personally used any of their products, but I intend to get them eventually. And you know what? If you want a good Bluetooth controller, I've used a DualShock 4 for years, and it's been fine. The D-pad's fine, it's got your analog sticks, and DS4 Windows is a really good software with a lot of different options for macro and gyro controls, X input, D input, whatever you want. This is a very versatile controller if you know how to set it up. Like, this is my daily driver when I play PC games with a controller. So I guess to sum things up, 8BitDo had a really good idea. The controllers they're making are controllers that I would really love if they weren't so shit. And you know what? They even have wireless receivers for the NES and SNES, where you can just plug a Bluetooth controller in and use it wirelessly on the actual hardware. I don't know how well it works, but I heard good things. But then again, it's only for the NES and Super Nintendo. What about the Genesis or the PlayStation and all that? Now, looking at their catalog, it looks like they've got a boatload of new and improved controllers coming in this holiday. I don't know, maybe they got better from feedback, it's hard to tell, but I don't think I'm gonna buy another 8BitDo controller. Maybe down the line I'll hear that they really improved, or someone else will come in and do this even better. But for now, I'm probably gonna fucking return this thing. So if you're interested in this stuff, I'm gonna put links to just about everything I mentioned. I mean, like, you do you. You can buy it if you want. I'm not gonna get mad at you if you do, okay? Maybe you're fine with overly loud buttons, so whatever. See you next time.